Hi everyone, today we're going to be going over how to set up a basic XR setup in Unity. So the reason why I'm making this video is because as the Unity XR Interaction Toolkit has improved over time, it's also gotten a lot more complicated, and the starter assets that you get with it, and especially like the default XR rig that you drag into, that you can, like the prefab that you can drag into your scene, comes with a whole bunch of new features that I just personally don't need. It also, I don't personally like all the pre-set up snap turn providers and smooth locomotion and teleport locomotion that it comes with. So I generally just make that stuff from scratch anyway. So if you want that stuff, by all means, go ahead, download starter assets and use that stuff. But this tutorial is just going to focus on how do we get just a basic XR setup going in Unity. So we're going to start off with a new project. I'm going to be creating a universal render pipeline. Let's do 6.2. I don't need this to be in the cloud. And we're going to go with my VR directory here. And the project, I'm just going to call it XRI setup. So you can go ahead and use whatever version of Unity you want. I would suggest 6 because it's got a whole bunch of new features, but honestly, you just do you. So we're going to create that project, and I'll be back once this is set up because it usually takes a little while. All right, we are into a brand new scene. I'm just going to set up a couple things just because we're going to be needing a scene just to make sure everything's working properly. So I'm just going to go add a few objects here. I'm going to add a plane. The shaders load. Lovely. So we've got a plane. Let's add a cube here just to make sure that we can see some perspective. Let's reset the transform there. And I'm going to drag it up and over just so that we have something that we can look at to make sure that our head tracking is working. And now we get started with the actual Unity XR stuff. So we're going to go over to the package manager now, and you can go over to the Unity registry and scroll all the way down to the bottom because X is near the bottom. And we're going to first grab the XR Interaction Toolkit. Go ahead and hit install on that. It's going to take a second. And then once that's done, we're going to go ahead and grab the XR plugin management as well. Hit install on that. So if you are wanting to use the starter assets, that's where this sort of samples section comes in. So you can import that if that's what you're wanting. But again, we're just focusing on a basic setup, so we don't actually need that stuff. So now that that's in, let's head over to the project settings, and we're going to go over down to XR plugin management here. First thing we're going to need is for PC. I would always recommend just using OpenXR, even if you are shipping on Meta. Just because Meta also uses OpenXR properly. It's going to complain about a couple things. We'll fix that in a second. But let's go over to Android. If you are shipping on Meta, you can go ahead and click Oculus as well. I don't know if OpenXR is fixed. It used to be that if it was OpenXR, it wouldn't initialize the VR environment properly. So I don't know. You can double check me, let me know in the comments if that's been fixed. But for right now, I always use the Oculus plugin. So yeah, so there's that. So now we got to go fix a couple things. So one of them is actually, we're going to go over to OpenXR here under PC, and we need one of these. This is where you put in all your interaction profiles for the controllers that you plan on supporting. So if you're going to do Valve Index or like Vive Wands or whatever, you need to add all those profiles. For me, because I'm working on an Oculus device or a Meta Quest 3 in this case, we're just going to go for the Oculus Touch controller profile. For me personally, just for now, you can add profiles later. There's no big deal. But now if we go to the project validation, we should see that one of them would have been gone, which is we need at least one thing there. But we can go ahead and fix all on this. We'll get rid of this one, and then it should take a second, and then these ones should fix themselves as well after a little bit. It's still compiling, and those are gone. So now our project is all set up to use the XR plugins. But now we actually need to have something in the scene for us to use for our XR rig, and the one that was provided with the samples has way too much stuff in it for me. So First thing we're going to need to do is just create an empty object for our origin. So I call this the XR origin. You can honestly call it whatever you want. We're going to reset that transform. So that's going to be at 0, 0, 0. Next thing we're going to need on that is we're going to need the XR origin script. And then there's a few things that we're going to need to attach to that. So we can grab the camera right now. We're going to be moving it in a second, but we can grab that. But what we also need is this camera floor offset game object. So let's go ahead and grab this Y offset value quickly. Just copy that. And we're going to create a new empty game object under it called camera offset. So this just makes sure that when you take the headset off or the VR isn't initialized, that you're not going to be like in the floor. It gives sort of just a general offset for Unity to use. And then we're just going to drag that object in here, as well as we're going to paste that value into the Y position of the camera offset. So that should be floating a little bit here, as you can see. And I just realized my cube is going to be not visible, so we're just going to move that guy over here. Maybe put it in the ground. That'll be fun. All right, so now that we've got the XR origin and the camera offset, we're going to move the main camera into the camera offset, and we're going to reset its transform so that it's at 0, 0 within the camera offset. And then here we're going to, first of all, in the camera settings, just because VR requires things close to the camera, we're going to set the near plane to something significantly closer to the default. Otherwise you'll see like objects clipping like almost right in, like not that close in front of you. So that is set. And then we need to add a few more objects, and then we'll start adding the tracked pose driver. So we just need one more game object for our left controller and another object for our right controller. And now we start adding some tracked pose drivers. So there's two. Oh, I guess I'm in the way here. Let me switch over to the right here. So there's, if I start typing in tracked pose drivers, you'll notice that there's tracked pose drivers and there's tracked pose driver input system. The main difference here is that the tracked pose driver without input system requires one of these input action assets where you set input actions up in a profile here. And then that those get initialized separately, and then you just assign references. Whereas the other one, if we go back to main camera, track pose driver input system allows us to just set those within the component, and then we don't have to worry about initializing them. And I like to keep my tracking inputs separate from my actual gameplay, which I will use the gameplay. I'll use an input action asset for the gameplay inputs, but when it comes to the tracking stuff, I just rather it just be dealt with here. So I'm going to choose the tracked pose driver. You can set it up the other way if you wish. It's all up to you. But so now we have to set some position, rotation, and tracking state inputs. These should be good, the rotation and position tracking, as well as updating update and before rendering, doing the update type that way. But anyways, so for position, this is where you would just drag in references if you were using the other one. But since we are not, we're going to add bindings here using the plus. Position for the headset, which is the camera, needs actually 2. So we're going to go to the XR HMD. We're going to do center eye position. And then we're going to press that plus again, add binding. And then we're also going to add the device position. Next up is the rotation. We're going to do the almost exact same thing because those will be available to us under the center eye rotation. So same thing, we need both the center eye and the device rotation. And device rotation. And then last but not least, we need the tracking state input. So let's add binding for that. So we go again to the XR HMD and then tracking state. So that it should be set up looking just like that. So that's the camera. Now we go ahead and do the same thing on the left and right controller. So the tracking pose driver just basically makes sure that everything is like this game object its transform will be updated when you move your controllers or when you move your headset. But now we're going to do the same thing here. So we're on left controller. So we have to make sure that now when we add binding, go to our XR controller, don't use the device position here. Go in again to XR controller left hand and select device position. Same for the rotation. So again, XR controller left hand, device rotation, and then one more time with the tracking state. Go to XR controller left hand, tracking state. And then right controller, we do the same thing. So track pose driver, input system. This time we go to with the controller, right hand, and device position. Controller, right hand, rotation. And last but not least, the controller, right hand, tracking state. And now everything should be set up. So to test that theory, I'm going to add another cube here under the left and right hands, just so that we can see that in fact things are working. I'm going to set the scale to 0.1 so that they're nice and small, and I'll copy and paste that into the right controller. Those are set to 0, correct? All right, and now I'm gonna go ahead, jump into my headset and make sure that it is in fact tracking. All right, so now that I am in VR, I'm gonna go ahead and play through my desktop editor. And shaders are loading, but there we go. We have rotation, position. I can move my head around, up, down, rotate, look around, and everything is all set up. So that's basically it. Everything is set up. You can go ahead, add components to these things, do separate tracking to these controllers, whatever you want to do. But that is the basic bare bones setup of an XR rig in Unity. And you can go ahead, save that as a prefab somewhere, and then potentially import it into other projects in the future, as long as you make sure you have the XR Interaction Toolkit and XR plugin management set up in your project first before you drag those into your project. But yeah, let me know what you guys think. If this video helped you out at all, please leave a like, and also hit subscribe if you want to see some more stuff from me. I'm working on a brand new VR game, so there's going to be some content around that. There's already a short up around the grapple hook mechanic that I've been prototyping. So if you want to see more of that, as well as some more tutorials to come, please hit that subscribe button. And without further ado, I'll leave you guys to it. Have fun making games.